Hi everyone and welcome to this week's video. This week I am in the garden. It's the end of October and I thought today we would have a look at foliage and greenery, the kind of foliage that I cut from the garden in September, October, November time to go with my flowers. And foliage is really important. It provides a framework for anything that you make in a vase or a bouquet. So any kind of arrangement you make, you build up your framework of foliage first and then your flowers sit within that and they are displayed at their best because of the foliage. So it's important to be using really nice bits of greenery that are going to add a lot to your displays. And at this time of year, in September, October, November time, you are using different foliage than you would in spring and summer. So I'll do a video when we get to spring and summer next year on the foliage I'm using then, and we'll start off just now with what's good in the autumn. So we'll have a look at what is in the bucket here, and we will also have a look around the garden, a closer look at the shrubs that I used to cut from. And it might give you some ideas about what you might want to grow in your garden next year to also look nice but have that double benefit of being able to cut from to use in your flower arranging. The main thing is, if you're cutting from your shrubs in the garden, make sure that you don't take more than about a third, because you want that shrub to do well year after year. You don't want to cut it back too much, but definitely have a few different ones that you can cut from, and that'll give you lots of variety. So let's have a look and see what we've got in the bucket here today. So we're getting to the last flowers of the season now. So I've still got some dahlias, I've got some zinnias, I've got some cosmos and asters, and I would like to display them in my house, and I want to find some nice foliage to go with them. So what have I got? Well, in my bucket today I've been cutting some eucalyptus, and I grow this from seed. It takes a few years for me to get it established and to be able to cut any foliage from it. But the important thing about eucalyptus is that in October, that's the start of when I'm able to cut it. I don't use it at all in the summer months and the late spring, because at that point in time it's putting on new growth and it's very soft and weak and it's likely to wilt in your vase. But at this time of year the foliage is getting stronger and it will be ready to cut. So in our climate I could cut from this October, November, December. I wouldn't cut so much from it in January, February time, because at that time I've got nothing to go with it. But still very early spring, so March and very early April, before it really gets growing again, I can use that in wedding flowers and arrangements then. So this is a lovely one to use. And what else have I got in here? This is one of my favourites. This is called Silk Tassel, and I'll show it to you a bit closer. I love this foliage at this time of year. So it's put on good growth over the spring and summer time. It's got fantastic sturdy stems on it and these lovely little catkins tassels on it. And this is called Silk Tassel. I'll put up the names of all of the foliage in the description so you can have a look at them. And it is fantastic, sturdy, holds up well in a vase for a long time, and it just looks a little bit different, so that is a great one to add in there. Another thing that's been putting on a lot of growth over the summertime is flowering quince, and you can see it here. It's another great one that you can add in to your bouquets at this time. It's still got its leaves, and so it has some nice tinges of red on it as well for a bit of colour. Another great one that you can use in arrangements at this time and all throughout the winter time, springtime, is Skimmia. So I'll show you that there, and I'll show you all these shrubs in the garden a bit closer up in a minute. But again, it has these lovely flowers on it at this time of year, and also it has these fantastic leathery leaves on it, really tough as old boots in a vase, never wilts, fantastic. I use this on my Christmas wreaths as well. Another one that I've got in here that holds up well at this time of year is Cotoneaster. It's got its red berries on it and it looks really good in a vase. And over here I have got some Physocarpus 9 bark, and that is a good one to use in arrangements as well. That's another bit there, and it is a really nice dark colour, so that'll go really well with your dahlias and your chrysanthemums and things that look really autumny. This one here is Physocarpus Darts Gold, and again, like the Physocarpus 9 bark, that is a really nice one to use in your arrangements. And I wouldn't use this early in the summer when it's putting on its new growth, because it would be tending to wilt, but by this time it's nice and strong, the leaves, so it stands up well in a vase. What else have I got over here? Now, we talked about this a few weeks ago. If you watched the Aster video, you will have seen that I quite often use the foliage before it's flowered as greenery in bouquets and in vase arrangements. And it's fantastic because it's so branching. It can provide a really great framework for any arrangements that you make. So things like that. People as well quite often use cosmos as well. It's got fantastic feathery foliage on it. You can see some here, and that can be really good in an arrangement as well, just to fill it out with some nice greenery. So this is a vase arrangement that I have for the stall, and I'll show you closer up just now what kind of foliage we've got in this one. So lots and lots of lovely flowers in here. We've got the dahlias, snapdragons, we've got some asters at the back, some yarrow, we've got some Rubella down here, lots of lovely autumn flowers. And the foliage that I've put in, I've got some Physocarpus darts gold there that you can see, and that just sets off the dahlias nicely. And round here at the front I have got some Privet in here. Now this is the last of the Privet I'll probably cut for this year because it is starting to turn now and it doesn't look quite as good for cutting. But I have got a few nice pieces still to use, and this is tough as old boots. I use this the whole way through the flower season from early summer onwards, and it is really nice and strong and lasts really well in a vase. So you can use it as a hedge and for screening in your garden, but you can also use it for cutting for your vase. And another thing that it looks really nice is I've got some Panicum Frosted Explosion in here as well, and I really like using some grasses, and we're going to have a look more at grasses next year when I restart growing them then. So the foliage we're cutting today has woody stems on it, and you want to be able to help make them drink. So we've got our stem here, and I'm just going to show you what you need to do with it. When you've cut it from your shrub or tree, you want to give it an angled cut. So I'll just show you here, cut up at an angle like that. And then what you want to do is take your snips and you want to cut up the way. So vertically up the stem for about an inch like that. And you should be able to see there. And that is just split the stem, and that helps the stem to take up water. So we'll put it back into the vase now. So for conditioning, after you have cut your diagonal on the stem, you have slit the stem up about an inch to take up more water, you need to put them back into your bucket and then put them in a cool, dark place to condition until you're ready to use them. And I like to cut in the evening, and then I can leave them overnight for a really good drink, and then they're ready to arrange with in the morning. But as long as you leave them for a good few hours, then that will mean that they've taken up lots of lovely water and they're in a really good shape to use. Let's go just now and we'll have a look at some of these shrubs closer up in the garden. So out here in the garden we can see the foliage a little more easily, and this is Physocarpus 9 bark, which is a fantastic shrub for cutting from, mainly because it has this gorgeous colour in the autumn which goes really well with the autumn coloured flowers, but also because it's rapid growth. So I'll cut from it this year, and I'll cut quite a lot of stems from the shrub, but it grows so fast that next year it will have lots of new ones that I can cut from. So as long as I only cut from about a third of the plant, then I know that it'll regrow and be just as bushy for me next year with lots of new stems. I just love this small bush tree that's in the garden. It's Garrya elliptica, and it's also known as the silk tassel bush, and it is fantastic for using in arrangements because it's got such sturdy stems. It's got these wonderful catkins that appear in the autumn on it, and it's got lovely glossy green leaves. So I can use it in jam jar posies or small ball arrangements where I just cut a small piece of the stem off, or I can use it in much larger arrangements because it's got really nice tall growth on it. And the great thing about this is that it comes back every year and grows really rapidly. So that is one of the big things for all the foliage I'm talking about today, is that I'm talking to you about ones that have rapid growth on them, so that when you cut from them it means that you're not waiting years for it to come back again. I'm going to cut quite a lot from these bushes, and then the next year they'll reward me with long strong stems again for using. I think everybody should have some Skimmia in their garden because it's such a fantastic shrub throughout the winter time for interest. It's got these lovely glossy green leaves that are evergreen, and in the autumn time it has these lovely red flowers that come out, and I really use it a lot over the winter time. So I'll use it just now in my autumn jar arrangements when the other foliage is starting to decrease, and then I'll use it a lot in Christmas wreaths or any Christmas flower jar posies that I'm making with some paper whites or other similar flowers that I have forced. So it is a fantastic shrub to have, and I really like it because it's really pretty as well. So the Japanese quince has been growing away rapidly all summer, and it's really useful for adding into arrangements, smaller ones because it doesn't have the longest stems on it, but great for jam jar posies and small arrangements for the house. And it is deciduous, so I am using it just now and in early autumn, September time, when it hasn't lost its leaves yet, but by November time it will start to lose its leaves, and from then on you'll have to wait until spring for it to come back again. But in the springtime it has the most beautiful red flowers on it, and I'll try and show you that next year in the spring because it grows up against our house and it just looks amazing. It's one of the first things to flower after a long hard winter. When we think of Hypericum and flower arranging, we always think of those gorgeous berries, and I've used a lot this year. I've used some coral berries and some white berries and some red berries, and it's absolutely fantastic for that. But it's also worth not forgetting that Hypericum can be good for foliage as well. So it's got these nice green leaves, holds up well when conditioned in flower arrangements, and is another foliage that is still around in the garden in late autumn. So a couple of years ago I started growing a privet hedge. So I just had very small plants that were about 10 centimetres high, and they've been growing away for me, lining one of the flower patches. And I have discovered since then that it puts on the most rapid growth really quickly from spring onwards throughout the summer, and it has these really strong stems that you can use in flower arranging. And at the moment it has still got its leaves. They tend to lose some of their leaves in cooler climates like here in Zone 8B in Scotland over the winter time, so I won't be able to use it for much longer, but it is definitely in early autumn and all through the summer it's been a fantastic foliage to use. Cotoneaster is a foliage that I've started to use a bit more in the garden, mainly for bigger flower arrangements because it has such rapidly growing, really long, sturdy stems. And I've actually used them in funeral sheaths a bit, where you need a nice, strong, long, sturdy base on the bottom. And they're great because they've got these lovely small glossy green leaves, these nice red berries in the autumn, and they have such rapid growth. So even if I cut it back just now and use quite a bit in the autumn, I know that next year it will produce lots of lovely new strong stems for me. So again, another really good one for being rapidly growing to provide new foliage for you in the garden, and great for those big larger arrangements. I love eucalyptus. This is Eucalyptus gunni that I've grown from seed in the garden, and now after a few years it has formed a small tree which I can use for cutting from. And I use eucalyptus endlessly in spring wedding work. It's a fantastic foliage to have with its silvery blue leaves. And actually it's surprisingly easy to grow from seed. So I've got some growing in the greenhouse at the moment, and next week when we do an October catch-up of all my plants, I'll be able to show that to you then. It takes a few years for it to get big enough to cut from, but it is a rapid grower, is eucalyptus. The only thing is that you cannot cut from the eucalyptus in late spring and summertime because that's when it's putting on its new growth and it's very soft and it would just wilt in a vase. So you can start cutting from it from about now in October time. You can cut through the winter time, and then I'm still cutting from it in March and early April for those first spring weddings. So it has a good period where you can cut from it when you've lost your other foliage that isn't evergreen. So here's these asters again that we've seen in our perennial aster video a couple of weeks ago, and they just make the most fantastic filler foliage. So you don't have to wait until the flowers come out. If you're looking for some foliage for a bouquet or an arrangement and you're not knowing what you can use because you're maybe a bit short, then use some of your flower foliage. So things like the asters, they have these lovely branching stems on them. They make the most fantastic fillers in an arrangement, and they look a little bit different as well. These ones are are the Novae Angli asters, and they have these hairy leaves and things, so the texture is just that little bit different as well. And you can think about using other of your flowers as well for foliage, like we've talked about before. The cosmos is another one that you could use, or you can even use Helichrysum foliage before the buds have come out. All sorts of things that you can use if you are short on shrubs to provide foliage. So I hope having a look around the garden there at some of the lovely foliage at this time of year that is really good for arranging has given you some ideas for things that you might like to grow in your gardens. And next year we'll have a look in the spring about what is good foliage to use then, and in the summer we'll have another look as well at foliage to use in the summer, because at different times of year it's different what you can use. So lots and lots to show you next week. I'm looking forward to having you back in the flower patches again. You can see how I'm getting on clearing up those beds and see if there's any last flowers still blooming. We'll have a look in the greenhouse, see how all the seedlings are getting on, how the sweet peas are, the ranunculus. I'll be able to show you some of those little eucalyptus seedlings as well. So definitely lots of exciting things to show you, and I really hope you can join me then. Have a great week.